before. Together, we created the most secure border in U.S. history, and we built nearly 500 miles of border wall, actually more than that. And when I said Mexico will pay for the wall, they largely did, because they supplied us with 28,000 soldiers free of charge at our border. You know that, right? You remember I said they pay? Well, there's no way they can actually pay for it legally, because they can't say, here's a check for a wall that we own. Just no way you can do that. But they paid much more than that, because they gave us 28,000 soldiers free of charge. And they did a very good job. But when I first asked them for that, I said, I'd like you to give us 28,000 soldiers. That's the amount we need to protect our border while we're building the border wall, which is mostly built. Actually, we finished a big section and everything that I said I was going to do. And then I was going to add 200 miles more, because all of a sudden areas that weren't a problem become a problem. It's like water, right? And we're going to do another 200 miles. We had everything bought. And it was going to be erected over a period of 3 weeks. Could have been 3 weeks, another 200 miles. And they sold that stuff for like 5 cents on the dollar. Most expensive wall you can buy, the hardened steel, et cetera, et cetera. But it's just a shame. That's when I realized they wanted open borders. I said, nobody wants open borders. Nobody that loves our country, unless they're very stupid. And they can't be stupid, because you can't cheat on elections that well and be stupid. So they're smart, but they are evil. They really are. They're evil. They've got some. They hate. They must hate our country. I ended the NAFTA disaster, the worst trade deal ever made, and replaced it with the brand new USMCA. That's Mexico, Canada, the best trade deal ever made. Although actually, the deal I made with China, I think, was probably the best. $50 billion they have to buy every year. But then I don't even usually mention it, because when we got COVID, the whole thing. Once COVID came in from China, Wuhan, remember I said it came in from Wuhan. Everyone said, why would he say that? It came in from caves. First they said it came in from Italy, which was not nice. Then they said it came in from France. Then they said the American soldiers brought it in, right? And then they admitted it came in from China, but it came in from Wuhan. It came in from their lab. But I took on communist China like no administration in history, bringing hundreds of billions of dollars pouring into our treasury when no other president had gotten them to pay this country 10 cents. They never talked to China about that. I then gave the farmers and New England lobstermen $28 billion. You know, I gave your lobstermen $28 billion. And you know the ridiculous 500 square miles of the ocean that they wrote off. They said you can't go fishing there, you can't go for lobsters, you can't do anything on this piece of ocean that was fine. I said, what was the purpose? They had no idea. They couldn't even explain it to me. Probably, you know, they said environmental, but it had nothing to do. The lobstermen from Maine and from your state, right? Is that right? Did I do it? And I ended it. And they went out, you know, instead of having to be in a boat for 2.5 days to get to an area where they're allowed to fish and grab the lobsters and all the things that they did, they couldn't afford to do it. It was a disaster. I ended it entirely. And then they came back. You guys know what I mean. Who's from Maine? Anybody from Maine? Am I right? Right? And I opened it up fully so they could fish and they could do what they have to do right, you know, offshore. And everybody was happy. And then he came back within 2 weeks. He signed it off again. He wrote it off. It's a horrible thing what they're doing. I fully rebuilt the U.S. military, created Space Force, defeated ISIS. I defeated ISIS. 3 weeks I defeated ISIS. And I was the first president in decades who didn't start a war. Remember, Hillary said, he will start a war. No, my personality kept us out of war. She said, his personality will get us into World War III. No, my personality kept us out of World War III. Kept us out. When I told, as an example, going back, when I told Mexico, you got to pay for it, well, why do we have to pay? Because you're letting all these people pour into our country. You're going to have to pay. Well, we won't do that. Yes, you will, 100%. No, we won't. No, 100% you'll pay for it. And he thought I was like, what, is he crazy? I'm talking with the top person in Mexico, not the president, who I have a great relationship. I didn't actually want to have that conversation. I wanted to have it with somebody else because I really like the president. He's nice. But he had to do this. So I said, no, you'll pay. You'll pay 100% of it. He said, no, we won't. Yes, you will. And here's the story. If you don't pay it, we're going to sign a tariff. I have the papers right in front of me. On Monday morning, this was a Friday, on Monday morning, we're going to tariff you, tax you, 25% on every car that you sell into America, 25% on every product that you sell into the United States, and that's far more money than the cost of 28,000 soldiers. And he said, you wouldn't do that. I said, I'm ready to sign it right now. It'll start on Monday morning at 7 o'clock in the morning. Everything that you sell into this country will be taxed or tariffed at 25%. He said, may I excuse myself from the room, sir? This is the guy that said, no way. I said, wait, before you excuse yourself, there's a couple of other things we want. We want stay in Mexico. We don't want anybody coming into our country. We want catch and release, but we're releasing them in Mexico, not into the United States. All these stupid things. I gave him a list. Sir, I'd like to come back to see you in a few minutes. Do you mind if I make a call? So obviously he went call the president. And came back and, sir, it would be our great honor to supply you with 28,000 soldiers. We got 28,000 soldiers. It took me 20 minutes. 20 minutes! Then they say, oh, Mexico didn't pay. Mexico paid a fortune for that wall. When they tell you Trump didn't get the money, remember I used to say Mexico will pay for it. Well, that's what I did. This is something they could do. And their soldiers were tough, too. They weren't as politically correct because our soldiers, they want to arrest them if they raise their voice. You know, they raise their voice. I'm sorry, sir, you're not allowed to come in. He's harassed me, and they want to arrest our soldiers. These people are crazy that we have running our country. But I negotiated peace deal after peace deal, and I brought our troops back home from Syria, from Iraq, from the fight with ISIS, from other countries. I got rid of ISIS because I got rid of the previous rules of engagement. They had rules of engagement. If they'd meet a nest of ISIS, like 25 people that are vicious killers, they'd have to call the White House to get approval to do what they had to do. And so I get in there the first night I'm in there. I get a call at 3 o'clock in the morning. Sir, there's a colonel on from Iraq, and he'd like permission to wipe out a nest of very bad people. I said, does this happen often? Yeah, no, Obama wanted them to call because sometimes they wouldn't give permission, sometimes they would. But I said, let me ask you, Colonel, where did you go to school? Sir, I went to school at West Point. And you studied military and you're really good at it? Yes, sir, I'm good at it. I'm a warrior, sir. And then I speak to other people too, a captain, a lieutenant. You know, they were calling and I'd talk to them. I said, where'd you go? I went to West Point, sir. Or I went to Annapolis, sometimes along the shore. They had such incredible weapons. I went to Annapolis, sir. I was first in my class. I said, wouldn't you be better off making a determination as to what we do with these people? Yes, sir. Anyway, I gave them the right to make their own determination, which is and within a period of 4 weeks, it was over. It was over. We also had somebody that, you've heard that story, but General Kane, Raising Kane. But let me just tell you, we have a great military. They're trying to turn them woke. It's not going to happen. But we have a great military, and it's really worked. But, you know, we had some bad leaders recently. We had leaders that are, I call them television generals. But we have great generals there. We have great admirals. We have great people. We have, you know, I rebuilt the entire military. We rebuilt a lot of the military. And sad that we had to give $85 billion of it, which is actually, believe it or not, a small chunk, but we had to give $85 billion to the Taliban. Do you know that the Taliban now is the second largest seller of military equipment in the world? They're selling the 700,000, because they don't need 700,000, they probably need 10,000 guns and rifles. 70,000 trucks. If anybody owns a beautiful used car lot in New Hampshire, if you have probably 200, it's a lot. That the inventory is too big, you're doing something wrong. 70,000 trucks and cars and vehicles, many of them armor-plated, many of them costing over $1 million each. We left it all behind because we're stupid. We left it all behind. And then we left Bagram because I was getting them out. I'm the one that got it down to 2,500 soldiers, but the one thing I was doing, we were keeping Bagram. It's one of the biggest Air Force bases in the world, cost us billions and billions of dollars years ago. Billions and billions years ago. It's got runways that are 20,000 feet long, which is the biggest and the strongest. Could land anything on them. And I was going to keep that, not because of Afghanistan. I was keeping that because they're 1 hour away from where China makes their nuclear missiles, right? And you know who has that Air Force base now? China. China! Together we saved America once before, but we will save America again, and again, we're going to make it better than it ever was.